would say I first learned about it in high school, honestly. It was pretty late. It wasn't ever taught. I just knew we had like a special needs program in our school. And so kids would go there to do their schoolwork and receive assistance while doing their work. But I didn't know, no one told us why or what the reason was or anything behind it. It kind of took me asking and wanting to learn more so than it just being taught. My first-hand experience, I was in college. I volunteered with a program called Art Feeds, and it taught art therapy to children that had PTSD or something along those lines. And there was a child in my class that I taught that had autism. So my first impression, I got more so from their aide opposed to the student themselves. They were excited to be in a typical classroom, and the aide that was with them kind of put up a wall between them and like the other students, wouldn't let the other students like talk to them, wouldn't let us as professionals really interact with them because they were too afraid of the unknown, I believe. So my first impression, was joy that the student was able to come into our typical classroom, but also sadness that there was such a boundary between them and the other students. I worked with children with intellectual and developmental disabilities for 2 years. It was in a recreational setting, so unless the caretakers or they were on a specific service wanted to work on specific goals, we didn't. We really wanted this environment to be a safe and fun environment for them. We went on field trips, did arts and crafts, played games, just wanted this place to be a good, fun opportunity that they could interact with other like children. I had zero training prior to the position. The position I applied for, I didn't even know what I was applying for. It made it sound like it was more event planning. And then I showed up to the interview and they're like, can you plan arts and crafts and games? And I'm like, of course I can. I love those. So I had no idea, honestly, what I was still getting myself into. The training that I did was pretty much all online. I started the program as beginning staff, and so we only had 4 children, and so they didn't know how this program was going to look, what we needed, things like this. So we did some online trainings that did not really help me at all, and kind of just, we always said we built the plane while we were flying it. We figured out what worked, what didn't, and went from there. So I've worked with quite a few children that were nonverbal. It changes the approach. If anything, I don't know if it really changes though. I approach every child that I work with on wanting to know and understand them better. I mean, how communication is delivered may be different. We may have a board, a notepad like you do. We had boards that children could tap pictures if that's what they wanted. So really that, but actually working with the child, I would just treat them as any other child. There's so many. I think one of my most favorite experiences was I planned a field trip to go play laser tag. We had rented out the building. I had talked to the manager to make sure the music was turned down, the lights were turned up for our kids. And people did not want us to go at all. They said that these kids, we were putting them at risk, taking them to laser tag and all these things. But so many of them had asked to do that because their friends at school would get to go and then they wouldn't get to. And so we took them to play laser tag, and we got an hour of just us in the building. They locked the doors, and so all the kids were safe. They had like bouncy houses and a basketball court, laser tag. They had like arcade games, so there was something for everyone to do. And I have never seen these children so happy in their entire lives. I was just blown away. That's something that we take for granted. So I can just go play laser tag whenever I want to, but they got to experience this for the first time at age 9, 10, 16, 17. And it was just like taking a child to Disney World for the first time. They were everywhere. It was so cool. We had one child that was in a wheelchair, and we put the vest around his wheelchair and navigated. We had him hold the gun while we pulled the trigger, and we're like pushing him through this course. And his smile was from ear to ear. And that's probably just because so many people told us that we couldn't do it. So the fact that we did, everything went great, no issues at all, was like the best. The most challenging experience I had was no one can train you how to handle when a child gets overstimulated, especially because every child reacts differently. And so learning that this happens, to stay calm and to just be there to comfort and not get frustrated. That was something I witnessed with a lot of people, is as a child would escalate, so would they. And they were doing both of them an injustice. The staff was doing themselves an injustice, and the child, because the child feeds off of your emotions. They can feel everything 10 times what we can feel. And so learning to just be there and be reassuring and just not reacting was one of the hardest things that I had to learn, because it's hard. We're humans too. Of course, we're going to react if there's someone screaming at you or cursing at you or whatever, however they react. You want to react to that too. And so after I was able to figure that out, of no, I can't be emotional about this, I can't take it personally, I was able to better serve the people I worked with. We have one child who his family was very big into their faith, and so they would go to church every Sunday. They would volunteer at the church a lot, and so this child would preach to us, and it was the cutest thing because he would preach about things that he loved. And so he would run in and he'd start dancing, and then all of a sudden you'd hear hallelujah chicken nugget, and I was like, yes, I'm here for it. And so you could always tell when he was really passionate about something, because he would start preaching it to you. And that was always really fun to watch. I think the thing that I had most in common was the ability to be silly. I'm a quirky, individual, and to see what these children were passionate about and just feed off of it and just be silly and not, they don't have to worry about people telling them to stop or doing anything like that. We could just play, or we could dance, or we could make funny noises, or I could walk in. We had these fake snowballs, and there would be days that I would get them and just run in and attack all the kids with these fake snowballs and then run. And just the ability to be able to do that, because some adults really have a hard time with being silly, with just playing and having fun. They want to be the like strict professional, and there's a time and a place for that. And working with children in a recreational setting is not that time or place. I would compare myself to like the fun ants. Like they got to come and they got to be messy and play in dirt and paint and get, you know, destroy their clothes, and then I got to send them home. And I'm sure there were many days that the parents would walk in and be like, oh no. So that would be my role. But I did have to be on the same page as the parents. That was something that was really important, is knowing those boundaries, knowing what the parents wanted from their child and what they didn't. If they were saying something at home and they wanted that behavior changed, making sure that we really worked on it there as well. So it wasn't a full free-for-all, but yeah, like the fun aunt that got to make messes, and I got to take them to arcades and give them sugar, and then at 6 o'clock say, I'm sorry, but we had a great day. So, yep. So yeah. I don't see representation that much, which is sad to say, but that's why there's people like you that are doing this, and there's people like me that advocate for children with disabilities. I know I was really excited that Sesame Street finally has a puppet with autism. That's really cool. But the things that I see of people working in mental health or with people with intellectual or developmental disabilities is all false. They don't show the goods, they don't show the highs that you have. I've had so many more highs of working with these children than I have of any low. Like we need to we need to talk about it more. I think it needs to be addressed more, but B, also not focusing on the negative, and maybe people won't be as scared to talk about it. Honestly, I think one of the largest misconceptions is that just not just autism, but any like intellectual or developmental disability that I've noticed is that people talk down on to them as if they don't understand, like they're not smart, they're uneducated, which is not true. The kids I worked with are some of the smartest children I have ever seen. Their knowledge is just different than ours. I watched them go through math problems like it was their job. And I would sit there, they'd ask me to look over their homework, and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. Yeah, I don't have enough fingers. Like, and I would see them, these kids could code. They were doing coding on computers. And I put up this software to block like certain websites, and it took me like 2 days to figure out how to upload the software, and they had cracked it within 2 minutes. They're like, yeah, someone put this on the computer, and I'm like, I worked so hard. And so just because their knowledge doesn't come out in the same way, they can't always speak about what they know or things like that, doesn't mean that they're any less smart than you. And I wish people would understand that. I wish that they could fully comprehend. Their brains just work differently. That's all it is. It's nothing. They're not uneducated. It's not that they don't have a future. They just have to find their route. And so I think that's the largest misconception that I have seen from people that are outside of this realm. Taking the time to learn. We would go to the park, and we were a diverse group of people. We had, our staff was diverse, our children were diverse. We all came from different backgrounds in life, but we all came together to work and serve this population. And that's what I noticed, is that we were all willing to learn. So we would go to the park, our very diverse group, and children would approach our children, like just typical children playing with their families would approach our children. And often the parents would react like, oh no, like don't get too close or don't do that. And it's just the lack of knowledge or even caring to learn about this community. So I would, instead of being afraid, I want people to ask those questions. There were so many times that I had to ask parents, like, I don't understand, help me understand. And they wouldn't ever be offended. They were happy that I was wanting to know and better understand their child. And so at the park, we would always, if a child approached some of our children, we would encourage them to play. So hopefully they can grow up knowing that there's nothing wrong, there's nothing bad about these children. They're typical children. They like going to the park too. They like playing. They just express themselves differently. And so I wish more parents would teach their child, like their typical children, this lesson, but also open their hearts to learn that lesson as well.